India is really, now more and more they are discovering, full of ancient Indian Buddhist sites, almost all over India. So this is really, really very, very exciting and very, very interesting. Although the Indian government and others did a lot of excavation, but still more and more. Even recently, in the last 1 week or so, I saw at least 2, 3, news clippings saying that one they discovered somewhere in Ranchi, and then somewhere in where it was it, Gorakhpur or somewhere. More and more. So I mean, it's full of Buddhist places. So that is of great interest to all of us, especially to our Indian brothers and sisters, because we are talking about the spread of Buddhism in India. And so that is a task I would like to give you. And I also, I'm not a researcher or historical, scholar or anything like that, but luckily as a Buddhist follower and believer in the Buddhist teaching, I visited a number of places like Bodh Gaya, Varanasi, many places, Lumbini, Kushilnagar, many places. Some places few times also. But I visited these places out of faith, Shraddha, not so much about what has happened there, who was there, at what time, all those historical things. I'm not good at all in general, and especially also I was unable to do that. So I leave it to you. It will be very, very interesting. For example, just for example, this book, I would like to show you. I'm sure you have seen this book. This one says Buddhist India Rediscovered, written by Aruna Deshpande. So in this book, it lists so many places all over India, south, north, east, everywhere. So there are already a number of books. Then we can also, if you are interested, instead of listening to what I don't know, this book is also quite good. It's a rather old book by Edward Conze. The one that I really like about him is whether whatever he has written is completely to the fact or not, that is questionable. But it's still his way of thinking and the process of research is really quite innovative and quite bold. So according to him, he was summarizing by saying the first 500 years, the spread of Buddhism was actually in India, more or less in India. It was confined in India. So that period is called the spread of original Buddhism. Original Buddhism basically means the Buddhist tradition mainly coming from the Pali tradition, right? Then he says the next 500 years was the Mahayana Buddhism. So during which the rule of Ashoka and all those things came into being, and then the missionaries started, and then sent many of these practitioners and preachers to different places. And you all know this very well. Emperor Ashoka himself converted to Buddhism after fighting a very bloody war, killed so many people, and then he saw the senselessness of all those killing, and he became completely like a non-violent person, embraced Buddhism. So that itself is, read that part also. Later on, you read that part, how Ashoka, fought the Kalinga war, and how did he got converted, and what was the message that he sent later on, and what was the message he tried to send to many other countries of the world. That is very, very interesting, because based on one's own personal experience, he saw the senselessness of violence and killing. He was really very, very sad after so many people have been killed, So that killing or fighting battle was something, unfortunately, he has inherited, and in those days, everybody was trying to control each other, right? Things like that. So anyway, from there came the message of, the spreading of the message of peace, non-violence by Buddha became more vocal and more strong. Then, according to Konze, the next 500 year was the Vajrayana. So in the second 500 years, which is mainly the spread of the Mahayana tradition, then Buddhism went to many places outside India. Then during the tantric practice, Tantrayana practice, also a lot of spreading happened. Now, if you look at the transition from one to the other, the interesting thing that you will see is according to the spirit of the teaching of Buddha himself, everything is impermanent, everything is transient. So Buddhists strongly believed that after a certain period of the time, Buddhism will degenerate, even it might even demise. We accepted it. We never said that Buddhism will be there forever, never change, never decay. So those things were actually happening. But the process of change was so interesting that, when the first 500 years or so was the Pali tradition, which today we call it the Theravada tradition, which means the tradition of the elders. Sometimes people use the distinction Hinayana and Mahayana, and we try to discourage use of that word because there is a lot of misunderstanding. Hin means something tuch, lesser vehicle. Maha means greater vehicle. So without understanding the subject matter, people tend to say, oh, these people are the practitioners of the lower vehicle and we are the practitioners of the greater vehicle. So there is arrogance coming up, you see, a division coming up. So we try to discourage that and we use the word Theravada tradition, the tradition of the elders, which was the original teaching of the Buddha, preserved in Pali tradition. So what I was saying was the process of transition from one to the next, or assimilation of the later ones into the former one, was so wonderfully done. That we have the Pali tradition, which talks about the Four Noble Truth and the 37 limbs to enlightenment. Then on to that we have the Mahayana, which talks about the Bodhisattva Jnana practice, the cultivation of the altruistic minds to enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. Then this is next 500 years. This is what is added to this was the Vajrayana practice, where you go even more into yourself, and sometimes we call it the secret tantra, right? So which talks about handling very special parts, vital points of your body, energies, chakras, and so something like that. So that has to be done very skillfully and must be learned from a really, really qualified practitioner. So that's why it is called a secret. Not because there's something to hide, right? It has to be practiced carefully. Okay, again, this is a point for you to think, because these days everywhere you can see the yoga, where do all this nari and channel openly, they are doing all this. So, but in the Buddhist tradition, such teaching was there. I'm not saying who is right, who is wrong, but we need to analyze these things very carefully. Both may have an element of truth, but when it comes to really, really handling the in Hindi we call it suksham, suksham nari, very subtle, channels and drops, fluids and so forth, it has to be very, very careful. Otherwise, one might even go crazy, right? So what I was saying was, the later, sections of the teaching started on the basis of the previous teachings. Mahayana added to the Hinayana or Theravada tradition, then Tantrayana added to the Mahayana tradition. So it's a beautiful blend coming from one to the other. And all these teachings, the major teachings are kind of said to be taught by the Buddha. And in Buddhism, we have 108 volumes, which is said to be the Vani of the Buddha, the word of the Buddha. And all these are available in several versions in Tibetan. Even in my institute here, if you happen to come to Dharamsala one day, after you have destroyed the COVID-19, when you have fought the war and killed the COVID-19, then you come to Dharamsala and see my library. We have all this in the Tibetan text, the 108 volumes of the Buddha himself, and 225 ancient Indian commentaries translated long time back in Tibetan, still preserved in Tibetan. Many of these, unfortunately, are now not available in Hindi or Sanskrit, most of them. So how all this got destroyed, the incursion of the foreign invasion, and so many stories are there. So this also you need to read. I'm not going to say much about this, right? So that's the thing. So the how did this Buddhism spread, number one? If you look at what happened immediately after the Enlightenment, the Buddha, I'm not going to tell you a long story, but the Buddha, first of all, he was, this journey itself is interesting, how he started his journey from his palace. He was a prince. Okay, he was a prince, and he has all the luxurious items at his disposal, and so many servants. In summer, there's a different pool, swimming pool, or whatever you call it. In winter, there's another one, flower gardens here and there, so many things. But then, of course, from the Mahayana point of view, we believe that although he came in the form of a prince, but he was already enlightened. He was doing this just to teach us. He lived like an ordinary person to teach us how to go through the journey, right? That's what we believe. So therefore, despite his father wanting him to become the next the next king, the next universal monarch, or things like that, he was just a very curious young man, and he wanted to venture outside the palace. So this is symbolically very, very important. This journey, starting from that place, is very, very important. Because for me, this is particularly important because for us, we don't want to take either the inside journey, the spiritual journey inside, or we are also reluctant to take the external journey, like visiting all those places and finding out what was our ancient history, things like that. We are also not very good in that. We are very happy with our small room and few gadgets, maybe mobile phone and things like that, right? So therefore, Buddha was not like that. He was very inquisitive. He wanted to go. He was actually saying, he was always wondering, what is there beyond this palace, beyond the wall of this palace? He has all the comforts of those days, but he wanted to go. So that is a big message. We should travel internally, externally, especially internally. The Buddhist journey is really internal one, not so much external. The external journey is really symbolic to help people, take the internal journey. That's symbolic, right? So how to do the internal journey? And also, if you read history, number one, why did Buddha and many of the saints at that time, the Indian saints at that time, maybe Buddhist or maybe not Buddhist, whatever, why were they leaving the homes and going into the forest? What was the reason? One of the main reasons was India had many, many divide principalities, right? You know that. And our Iron Men, Sardar Patel united many of them, all these stories, Otherwise, you have small principalities. Every small principality has a ruler and king. Sometimes these small kings would fight each other, things like that. Then whoever is more powerful will control the other one, and that one becomes bigger and then bigger. And all the Buddha and all those people who are living at that time, they saw that the bigger a place is, becoming, the more bad things are coming. When there is almost like a big city coming up, then there is like exploitation coming up, raping coming up, stealing coming up. And then these people, they just felt quite disturbed and quite concerned, saying, what is happening now? Our morality is really going downhill. What is happening now? Let us just isolate ourselves, go into the peaceful place of the forest and think about a solution. That itself is right now, I'm not talking about enlightenment or nirvana, okay? Even from the point of view of how to solve the social problem, these people started, they fed up with this, living in those crowds where they were gambling and fighting and prostitution and so many things were happening in those days, imagine. So you can see what is our condition now, if those things were happening in those days. So these people really wanted to find an answer to solve the social problem. So they went into the forest, right? And discussed wisdom, shared wisdom, did contemplation, meditation through that way, right? So what I'm trying to say in this kind of expansion of Buddhism, the most important thing that I wanted to say is what the reason that Buddha ventured out of that palace and become more or less a beggar, a mendicant. It's not easy for us even to get deprived of one lunch or dinner time. It's a shocking thing, right? And then suddenly you leave your wife and then the young boy and the father, mother, of the palace and everything, and going out as a beggar. Can you imagine? But he did that. He did that because he was clear that if you want to solve this multifold problem that the society is inflicted with, then the solution is to come from within, not from outside. I really wanted to tell you this message. Which places Buddha visited and things like that, you can read. But I want to give you this message. Just like our present COVID-19 experience. Not only the problem coming from the COVID-19, but much of the problem is unpreparedness of the mind. You immediately get fear and anxiety, depression, because the only thing that you've learned in school and colleges and with the modern so-called modern world is going outward, chasing people, chasing objects, and thinking that your peace and happiness will come from there. And with the coming of the pandemic, when you're told to, practice social distancing and stay in your lockdown, stay in your home, you have no idea how to stay alone. So today's, of course, it was a problem in the past, and it's also a problem today is that we do not know how to live with others, and also do not know how to live alone. That's a big human problem. You must be good in one of these. Either you should know how to live alone like Buddhas, great masters. They intentionally went into the forest and did all this internal contemplation. They found the world within. So there's no question of feeling loneliness, suffering from loneliness. Whereas those of us who do not have that skill, do not have that idea, we live in a big city like Delhi or Bombay where millions of people are there. Still, there are people who are suffering from loneliness. You can't believe. So this is what we need to learn. That you came into this world alone, you are going out of this world alone. So right now you prepare. The source of your happiness is within yourself, not so much outside. Karwa sach bolta hai na Hindi mein. This is the bitter truth you need to learn. During this COVID-19 also, I gave so many talks and teachings, and many people, they said it is very useful. Because then they start trusting themselves, you see. And you are very important. Don't think that you don't have this capacity. हम लोग बोलता है ना, because when we don't want to do anything, then we say, मेरे से कहाँ होगा? How can I do this? I don't have this, I don't have that. You start counting all the shortcomings. You never count the blessings that you have. So therefore I tell people, count the blessings, number one. First of all, you are a human being today. You are not a cow, not a dog. If you are a cow and dog, what will you do then? With this human being, with this wonderful human intelligence. And I also tell them, don't think that you are somebody inferior, because you are the only original copy in this world. There's no second copy, any of you. You are the original copy, which means you have your unique talent, unique capacity, many unique things, wonderful, amazing things. So the problem is we don't go inside and think about these things. We only learn how to imitate. The machine imitate people, go after people, that's the problem. So therefore, I wanted to tell you this, because the story part, history part, you can read. But this experiential part, sometimes you don't find in the book. I really wanted to tell you this. Right? Therefore, the Buddha said, self is the protector of the self. No one else can be the protector at the end of the day. Similarly, self is the enemy of the self. No one else can be the enemy. Right? When something goes wrong, we have this habit of blaming somebody. Isne kiya, usne kiya, he did this, she did this, But you need to realize that you have played a part in that. Because of your weak thinking or whatever, you have played a part. If you have not played a part, you will not suffer by others' activities. So a lot of changing the attitude is necessary to take this internal journey. So it is because of this reason that Buddha left his beautiful palace, beautiful wife, father, and many. People have asked me, oh, I like Buddhism very much. Wonderful teaching. But one thing, can you answer this? One thing, What I don't really like is that he left his wife. Many people have asked this question to me. But I tell them that he left his wife, not fighting, not just leaving her like that, and a divorce and something like that. You see, if you read the story, how good his relation with his wife Yashodhara, amazing relationship. Yashodhara was a great social worker, a wonderfully kind-hearted lady, and Buddha, somebody who is enlightened, used to have so much love and compassion, probably not the attachment that we have, but pure love. And he used to say and used to think, my wife, Yashodhara, is such a kind-hearted, good social worker. But just social worker is, just doing social service is not enough. He felt that she must transform her mind. She must remove her negative emotions. That's the only sure way to path to nirvana and enlightenment. He used to think like, so there's a wonderful relationship. But he said, if I get myself bound with this one person, maybe son, maybe wife, and forget about the sufferings of these countless, not just human beings, countless sentient beings, then it's not good for me. For the benefit of countless sentient beings, which includes his father, which includes Yashodhara, which includes his son, to show them the path for long-term peace and happiness, he decided to leave that comfort, that palace, and went into the forest. And he went from master to master, living at that time, Hindu saints or whoever. So that's the journey he took. And then, to make a long story short, he learned a lot of things. But there were many questions that he answered that the teachers living at that time could not answer. And whatever he was taught to him, he learned more than what was taught and asked more questions. And all the teachers at that time, they were like dumbfounded. How come you understood all this so easily and you have many more things that we don't know? Then through his search, he found a very special path. We will elaborate on this tomorrow, right? The path called middle way and things like that, right? So therefore, he traveled from peace to peace. So physically speaking, geographically speaking, physically speaking, for example, as I said, after he got enlightened, when he was requested to give the teaching, okay, he did not give teaching right away. He said, I found something that is profound, peaceful, free from fabrication, clear light, unconditioned. To whomever I teach it, nobody will understand it. So don't disturb me. Let me continue my meditation. For 7 weeks, he did not teach. It is said that human beings and celestial beings, one after another, requested him to give the teaching. And he said, I found something. I found a nectar which is profound, as I said, so forth. There is a meaning to that. The meaning is that what he found really was profound, really was clear light, really was unfabricated. He was saying this not because he was reluctant to teach, share the nectar, but he was giving the message, number one, that this is what I found is profound. It's really profound, not easy to understand. You need to be ready to work hard. You need to show some seriousness. It's not like that just you hear something and then you repeat it, parroting, It's not like that. So therefore he taught this three process of listening, then thinking, and then meditation. Three process of study, three process of understanding the teaching. And then finally when he started giving the teaching was basically how to cure our suffering, how to remove our suffering. Because what he clearly saw, which we can all clearly see today, this is another important thing that I wanted to tell you. Many people might wonder, what is Buddha's teaching? Buddha's teaching is teaching in accordance with the law of nature. What he taught was what he discovered and existent already in the nature. The nature that is there in the rocks, the nature that is in the forest, in the trees, the nature that is there with you, with me. It was there already. The profound secret was already there in the nature, which is scientists are trying to discover that, right? Ancient philosopher, many philosopher, thinkers, Plato and so forth also tried to discover that. Buddha was doing that. As far as I remember, he did not say, I invented this. He said, I discovered it. It is there. You people are not looking. You people are not looking. And that's very pertinent because ordinarily, we see what we want to see, not what we should be seeing. That's the ordinary way of life. We hear what we wanted to hear, not what I should be hearing. That's the problem. So Buddha said, no, don't do this. Don't just keep on seeing what you want to see, but see those that needs to be seen. Don't keep on listening to what you want to listen, but listen to those which you should really listen. So therefore, he taught a teaching which is based on the law of nature. So that's why his teaching is said to be very profound, very scientific. That's why so many great scientists are today studying Buddhism and participating in the Buddha's teaching. Right? So that is something that we need to know. And this is important because such a teaching makes sense and relevant in our life today, especially in our life today. Right? So therefore, once he started teaching, he did not stay just in one place and started giving the teaching, make an advertisement and say, come, no. Online teaching was, of course, not there at that time. Although many great masters like Buddha, they had this capacity to do many, mysterious, hearing the sound from a long distance, seeing things which ordinary eye cannot see. All those things were there, but publicly, no, these special feats were not displayed. It's prohibited to display. You need to live like an ordinary human being. So therefore, he because having no modern media to teach, in order to share this nectar, because his concern was, as I said right at the beginning, the whole process of his hardship, ascetic practice, was how to remove the sufferings of sentient beings. Because he found two things very clear. All sentient beings, including human beings, want happiness, do not want suffering. He saw this very clearly. But the interesting thing with was, he was not happy just seeing that. So what he wanted to do is, if everybody wanted happiness, is there a cause for happiness? If there is a cause for happiness, then why don't people cultivate the cause for happiness? Just wanting happiness will not make you happy. Search for the cause of that happiness. Have it, cultivate it, meditate it, make it part of your life. Then there is a guarantee that you will be happier. You can also have long-lasting happiness, which is difficult for us to believe because our mind is not mature right now. Unchangeable, long-lasting happiness is possible. He saw that. So he tried to find out the causes for happiness. To make a long story short, he found that the causes for happiness is the positive emotions, positive mental qualities like compassion, patience, loving kindness, altruistic attitude, bodhicitta, things like that. Then if you do not want suffering, then he said suffering should also have cause. If you don't want suffering, if suffering has a cause, then instead of just complaining that I don't want suffering, you should look for the cause and eliminate it, or at least reduce it. And you will have less suffering. And then he found the ultimate cause for all types of suffering, all types of upheavals that we are experiencing in today's world, is your own internal negative emotions. I mean, amazing teaching. The only thing is we need to practice. As I said earlier, we have this tendency to, blame it to other people. Oh, it's because of the weather, I'm unhappy. Oh, it's because of the parosi, I'm unhappy. If I change my neighborhood, if I move to America, I will be happier. I know many people who did this, and then after a few years, they said the same problem is there in America or anywhere, because you are still in the human realm, ordinary human realm. So Buddha was saying, if you really want to happiness, change your attitude. Change your way of thinking. Change your way of thinking means not just praying. Change your way of thinking means your thinking should be in accordance with the reality. Now, what is reality? Reality, for example, to just give an example, reality means, for example, anger. The Buddha said anger is a negative emotion. It will bring suffering. It's not good. Right? So we all have that experience of getting angry on one or the other occasion. Now, I ask you to recall those moments when you got angry. Is there anybody who said that I was very angry on such and such a day and I really enjoyed the day? Nobody. Anger makes you ugly. Anybody who wants to become ugly? We don't want to become ugly. We get angry, we get ugly. Nobody wants to become mad. When you get angry, you become mad. I mean, you can see how bad these negative emotions are. But because we have no understanding, we think that by shouting, by getting angry, I can control that person, I can win their favor, things like that. Misplaced, wrong attitude, fighting, killing, world wars, conflicts. All this comes through anger, right? Just to give you an example. So what he was saying is, we are emotional beings. We have positive emotions, negative emotions. Understand, study your mind. Study your mind. And then reduce and do away with those destructive negative emotions. You don't no need to say this is a religious practice also. It's very scientific. Because we want happiness. So if you don't do that, then you don't take care of yourself. You're very stupid then. Right? This is something you don't have to ask other people to do it. You have to do it. Now, that doesn't mean that you become weak. Many people think, oh, if I don't get angry, आजकल की society में तो anger होना चाहिए, लड़ना चाहिए. ऐसे सोचते हैं हम लोग. This is how we think. नहीं भाई नहीं. Anger is not strength. People whose reasons run out, they get angry. So that clearly shows anger is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of weakness. Non-violence is a sign of weakness. It's strength, not weakness. So all this we need to understand. So what I was saying was, so Buddha, because he found the people are suffering from all kind of difficulties, the only solution is changing their perspective. And he found the way. So therefore he felt that I must share this. And then he started traveling. In his life, he is said to have taught for 45 years. And most of this time he was traveling from village to village. And in one book, I saw that he travels almost like 15 kilometers every day from one village to another village. And then he was joined by many people, the crowd becoming bigger and bigger like that. So this is how he spread the message. This is how Buddhism spread in India, at least in the initial stage. Then later on, his followers, especially like Ashoka, they also felt, yes, this teaching is because he had this experience of fighting and killing people and so senseless in it. So therefore he said he was convinced that now, not only in India, but everywhere, we must spread this word of non-violence, compassion. So therefore he sent some, missionary, did some missionary activities, sent people to different places. Although in India, he tried his best to maintain religious harmony, but he wanted to spread that message. So that's the reason. So that is how it went to like many, many places. The Theravada countries, as we call it, the Sri Lanka, then the Thailand, and then Burma, and so many places. Then we have Vietnam, we have Cambodia, and then Mahayana, we have Tibet and Mongolia and South Korea, and Japan, and big part of China. China is said to have even today over 300 million Buddhists, despite the government's strict surveillance, right? Then India, of course, lost for some years, but now again, There are many people who are now showing more and more interest. So I think hopefully a very good revival will take place in India. But the interesting is there is a cycle, you see. The interesting is when Buddhism, the reason, there are many reasons why Buddhism got lost. It was external factor, invasion, and some internal factors also. All this you need to study. And then also, in those days, most of the real Buddhist practitioners were genuine spiritual practitioners. They were not interested in politicizing. This is another important point that I want to share. You know, in today's world, if you want to survive, then you need to influence people by doing social activities, or even sometimes, maybe not a good thing, but sometimes joining some political party, you know, gaining their favor, things like that, you know. So that's how you survive. But in those ancient times, I mean, there may be many people, but most of the really, really great practitioners, their concern was genuine religious practice, not increasing their follower, not increasing their population, things like that. So therefore, I also want to warn you that genuine Buddhist practitioners, and thereby genuine religious practitioners, is hard to find. दिखावा के लिए बहुत है. For showing, yes, you have this temple, Buddhist temple, Hindu temple भी है, उसमें महंत या priest है, वो भी है, बहुत है. लेकिन people who have really practiced it and transformed their attitude and mind, seeing all sentient beings as same, in not only human beings, but kira makore se, even the worms, insects, birds, animals, same, they have feeling. So people who have that kind of sameness feeling, in Buddhism, especially in Mahayana Buddhism, we call all sentient beings as all mother sentient beings. I mean, great thinking. So how many people can really have that great thinking? That's the task. That's very difficult, not easy. We are small people. We want to divide, you know. And Buddha was teaching, don't get divided, things like that. So therefore, why I'm saying this is the idea of Buddha, and also many of his followers, great teachers like Ashoka and so forth, their idea was simply to help people remove and alleviate their suffering. Right? Then after the Buddha passed away, also, just before he passed away, he suggested people to, you know, construct certain stupas and holy places in different places where he was born, where he passed away, where he attained nirvana, you know, things like that, so that people remember those great teachings. Right? How much time we have? 4. Okay. So I see a few more minutes and then we stop. Right? So now today, the situation is many countries, like for example Tibet, or even right now Inner Mongolia, and many places, the country itself is ruled by communist dictators. So it is impossible to practice. Like His Holiness Dalai Lama and all Tibetans, many are here in India and many in other parts of the world. We are expelled from our own country. Even in many Buddhist places, like Myanmar also, many places they are having a lot of problems. Cambodia experienced that. Vietnam experienced that. So the historical forces, changing historical forces, are making a lot of impact. But gold is gold. It will shine out. Truth is truth. The more it is more or less dissipating or having difficulty in Asian other countries, that today more and more people from West are embracing Buddhism. Many people. I myself met so many people. I went to many countries giving talks and teachings. There's so much thirst and interest in the Buddhist teaching. By saying this, I'm not at all trying to promote Buddhism, saying that this is the most important religion. If I say Buddhism is the most important religion, I'm stupid. Because what is important is up to the individual. These different religious traditions, like medicine. If somebody asks me which medicine is the best medicine, that's a stupid question. And if I pick up a panacea and say this is the best medicine, stupid answer. If I'm having headache, panacea is best for me. But that doesn't mean panacea is best for people who are having diarrhea. Right? So which religion is best for which person? That's up to their interest, up to their disposition. So we cannot pick up just one religion and say this is the best. There are many people, unfortunately, who say this. That's wrong. So you can choose whichever religion you want. But what is important is we need to maintain the goodness of the human character. Remain a real human being. A real human being basically means somebody who has some value system. And most importantly, having this feeling of love and compassion for other, if not all sentient beings, at least for other fellow human beings. If we don't nurture and cherish these things, then our generation, your generation, or next generation will suffer. Because unfortunately today, many leaders in the world are really, really stupid and short-sighted. They only talk about their country, division and killing, and then stockpiling arms. For me, they are completely crazy. Doesn't make sense. We are on this earth for a very, very short time, and this short time is for unity, for happiness, not for death and destruction, not for killing. We are not born here to cry. So many unfortunate things are happening. So therefore, the essential message of Buddhism is that there are so many levels of suffering. We should try to address all of this suffering, or at least reduce the man-made suffering. That's the purpose of Buddha's teaching. That's the purpose of the teaching of all the great Buddhist masters. So it is because of this kind of, for me, I call it perennial teaching. Because of this everlasting teaching, people liked it. And it spread it to many, many countries. If I just give you one living example, as I said, I traveled to many countries giving teachings. And I found that there are many Buddhist centers all over the world. There may be not many Buddhist centers in the world which got started due to the effort of the individual Tibetan teachers. Not many. I will not say that there's none, maybe one or two, but not really many. All these Buddhist centers all over the world, especially in America and Europe, many countries in Europe, they came at the request of the local people. Please come, start a center. There's such a good teaching, such a good message. That's what I'm saying. So my point is that when Buddha and the great teachers, they travel around, they wanted to spread that message of peace and love and compassion. People saw the importance of their love and compassion. They supported it, and it's spreading. Buddhism is a religion which did not, get around the world with violence or any other tactics, which also, unfortunately, history is abound with those tactics also in the case of a number of other religious traditions or cults. And also, it's a history with minimal violence. Now, sometimes you see here and there, things get corrupted, you see. But otherwise, one of the, important characteristic found in Buddhism is minimal violence. So anyway, what we need to really find out to make a distinction between the religious practitioners and the religious teaching. Don't mix these two. Follow the genuine teaching, whichever religion. Follow the genuine teaching. Don't follow the person. The person may be politicizing religion. The person may be misusing religion. Person may be marketing religion for his own livelihood. Many nasty things can happen. We call politics dirty politics. Politics itself is not dirty. It's the politicians who make it dirty. Similarly, religion also can become dirty due to the misusing of religion by the so-called religious practitioners. Right? And then lastly, I want to tell my Indian brothers, sisters, that Buddha was not a Tibetan. If Buddha was a Tibetan, you might say, oh, he's a Tibetan. That's why Geshe is talking too much about Buddha. He's not a Tibetan. He's in India. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama repeatedly said, and I would like to join him by saying, the Tibetans, if you read the history, Tibetans have been one of the most faithful follower of the Buddha. Until Tibet was invaded by China, Tibet had preserved all the teachings of the Buddha. Now, even in exile, as I invited you that one day if you can come to my place in Dharamsala, you can see for yourself that 108 volumes of the words of the Buddha in Tibetan, 225 volumes of the Indian masters like Nagarjuna, Kamalashila, Atish, so many teachings whose name we know, you don't know. So there's really treasure there. And we are preserving it. In exile also we have established many monasteries. Of course, we are all ever thankful to our Indian brothers, sisters, Indian government for providing us to come here and stay in India and do all this. I'm not, that I'm not thankful. I'm very, very thankful. But what I'm saying is we are still working and perspiring to preserve this rich tradition, not just for Tibet, but for the benefit of human beings. So that should be our goal, and to spread the message of peace and love and compassion, be it from Buddhism, be it from anywhere, we need to go out and travel. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama is travel to so many countries. And I had the privilege of traveling with him to over 30 countries. And the visit was precisely for three things, through which I will say this and then I'll stop. Three things. One, His Holiness said, which you can also do, which I also try to do. His Holiness said, I am a human being, number one. The most important is not Tibetan, not Buddhist. Most important thing is I am a human being. Please recall this. This is important because ordinarily we do the other way around. First, I am an Indian. You are a Tibetan. There's a division. So don't do this because when you are born, you don't have any religion. Probably it may not be right to say that you are Indian or Tibetan at that time. Innocent baby crying, came into this world crying, nothing. Right? So His Holiness very wisely says, first of all, I am a human being. Therefore, I must work hard to preserve human values. Amazing, which is beneficial to everybody. Second, I am a Buddhist, which means a religious person. So you are. You belong to Hinduism or whatever, whichever religion you belong, no problem. So therefore, since I am a Buddhist religious practitioner, I must work hard to bring religious harmony. You follow whichever religion you want to follow. I follow whichever religion I want to follow. But we must work together, bring interreligious harmony, religious pluralism. These different religions are different dishes. If you want sweet, take sweet. If you want something salty, take that one. Whichever you want. It is stupid to fight over the dishes. I want sweet. Why don't you eat sweet? If you force that person to say things, it's the most stupidest thing. So religious harmony, not just follow your religion, bring religious harmony. Sometimes, unfortunately, even religion, which is supposed to be a medicine to cure all illness, becomes a poison. So many wars and conflicts have happened in the name of religion, not necessarily because of the wrong teaching in the religion, but because of egoism of that person. People who mostly do these things, they have no idea what core religious teachings that they say they follow. And then third, His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, third, I'm Tibetan, so naturally I have to work for the Tibetan people, especially today, the Tibetans are suffering so much, I have to work. So you can do that also. First, human value. Then second, religious harmony. Third, for your country. So, to spread this message, His Holiness traveled to so many, like the Buddha, he traveled to so many, many places. Now, luckily, these days we have the modern means of communication, so traveling is easier. We did this. You need to do this also. Wherever you go, spread this message of peace, message of love, message of compassion. Tell people life is short. This is not for fighting, I mean, imagine if you really if we all see each other, brothers, sisters, help each other, understand that others are suffering. I also have suffering, so I must, share all the good things that I have. We can change this world, make it a beautiful place. Instead, if you think only about yourself, nurture just the selfishness, it will not make you happy. So therefore, His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, if you want to be selfish, be wisely selfish. Wisely selfish means the best way to fulfill one's benefit is just genuinely helping others. So many things to talk about. These good messages. So these are the messages of the Buddha or His Holiness Dalai Lama. So in order to spread this message, and in fact, the message itself is so good that people will naturally come to it without being invited, just like gold, as I said. Right? So thank you. I'll stop here.